News Talk 1250 KBRF. Listen anytime, any place with the Fergus Now app on your phone. Joining me now, I've got Garry Schmidt from Cliff Viessman Incorporated and South Dakota Trucking Association. And Garry, we're going to talk a little bit about winter driving. Obviously, we've had a little bit more of a gentler winter than what we've normally seen, especially when it comes to snow and ice. But we're just in January. We've got a lot more winter left.
Yes, and Dave, thanks for having me, first of all. And secondly, even though we've had maybe less of the snow events and that sort of thing, there's still a lot of things one must bear in mind, because even with not a lot of snow around, there's still black ice is a concern, and following distance becomes even more important this time of year. Normally we figure 3 seconds is probably a good, safe following distance, but in poor road conditions and winter weather, I would say 15 to 20 is probably way more safer.
And of course, definitely when we're talking winter driving, there's a lot more night driving in the winter, just for a simple fact, there's a lot more darkness.
Yep, it's days are shorter, and just be aware of it. Increase your following distances, watch the conditions, watch for changes in it, and I also suggest making sure you have your winter survival gear with too, because that you never know when something can happen, and then stay with your vehicle and you'll be able to survive till the authorities can help you.
Now, what do you recommend having in a winter survival gear?
What I always suggest having is, like for myself, I've got a pair of insulated coveralls, my hunting boots, caps, mittens, but I also am lucky to have a sleeper, so I've got extra blankets available. And then I also have some high-energy snacks like granola bars, candy bars, bottled water, just things that will help you, stay if you have to stay there for a while. And don't leave the vehicle. That's the main important thing.
And I think that's one thing that might be kind of hard for people. They might think, I can't just sit here. I got to go do something.
Yep, nobody will find me here or whatever, but when you hear the stories of how they find these casualties so close to their vehicle, maybe 100 yards from their vehicle, and they're not even close to being found, and had they stayed with their vehicle, they probably would have survived.
Because you've got not only the snow, you could get hit by a car. We were doing some work. You might be thinking, okay, I'm off on some middle road. Nobody's going to find me on this road. Nobody travels this road. Well, first off, you're traveling that road. That means somebody travels on that road. And we were doing some work on the station, and I was off in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road. We were taking readings for some FCC stuff. But you'd be shocked how many people swung over and said, hey, do you need help?
Are you okay? Yep.
And I thought nobody'd be on this road, period. But it seemed like every 20 minutes, half hour, somebody came by.
Yep. And that's what's nice about our rural area. People look out for each other, and even though there isn't a lot of traffic, there's still ones that are going to check to make sure you're okay.
And you mentioned black ice, and that leads to something that I know I've always heard about when it comes to winter driving. And even nowadays, people might get kind of lulled into a false sense of complacency and use it, and that is, don't use your cruise control.
Oh. No, don't use your cruise control. The other thing, too, is black ice is really sneaky, because it will sneak up on you. You'll think, oh, well, there's no ice here. The road is good. But then you try to stop.
And where do you find more sections of black ice? Obviously it could be anywhere, but where is it more prevalent to be located?
Typically in the urban areas, because the traffic is slower, and the exhaust will actually, the temperature of the exhaust coming off the vehicle will get that reaction from the cold pavement, and that's the primary cause of black ice.
Now, as we look at winter, we're more than halfway through January, but we always talk about in Minnesota, the snowiest month is March. So obviously we've got some snow events still to come. Now, when you're out driving in such an event, what do you recommend for people if they're maybe on the highway or on the interstate?
First of all, slow down. Adjust yourself according to the conditions and what you feel comfortable in. You might be going at a reasonable speed, or what you think is a reasonable speed, then you get passed by somebody and you think, maybe I'm going too slow. But if you don't feel like you can control your vehicle at any faster speed, that's what you go at. Go what you feel good about. And if the conditions where you can't see the road and you don't feel safe, you don't feel comfortable, then the best is to get off the road and get into a safe spot and wait out the storm.
And that is one nice thing, especially around here where we do have every 20 to 50 miles, you've got a place where you can go.
Yes.
Garry, anything else we should talk about as we talk a little bit about winter driving safety?
I think we've covered a lot of it, but it's just your winter survival gear, slowing down for conditions, avoiding the black ice, and we all are trying to make it home safely. And then avoid your distractions too. The other thing of it is that there's so many problems that are involved with the distracted driving. It isn't just your phone. It can be pouring a cup of coffee. It can be grabbing a snack. But it takes 5 seconds to initiate a text message on the phone, Dave. On good conditions, your car can go the length of a football field in that time.
Wow.
And you think, what can all change in that landscape during that time? And you think, there's so much can happen. An animal can come out, or another vehicle, or if you're driving in town, a child can come out with a sled in the winter, or looking for a toy. Just always be aware of everything that's around you.
And I think you mentioned something that people might not think of as being a distraction. That's food.
Yep.
Digging through that to-go bag, trying to find your last fry. That'll take some concentration.
Well, yeah, especially when the fries are delicious.
Hey, exactly. Garry, I want to thank you for coming in and sharing some knowledge, and hopefully some people are going to learn some things and maybe save a life.
Well, I appreciate that, Dave. And then also I wanted to mention that if you have a civic organization that would like to have some type of a share the road presentation given to them, call the South Dakota Trucking Association office in Sioux Falls and talk to Michelle. She'll set you up, or she can set me up, or one of our other captains, and we would come out and do that presentation free of charge and give you a full idea of really good, safe driving around trucks program.
Sounds good. And Garry, before you go, one other question I wanted to ask you. What do you feel is probably the biggest, not detriment, but biggest difficulty for large truck drivers and semis during the winter? What are some of the things you guys encounter?
Well, sometimes it gets way more difficult to stop, and sometimes to get going again if you get a ice buildup at an intersection. Many of us increase our following distance, and try to maintain that. And then there again, if I don't feel good about a road that I'm on, the office isn't going to make me go if I don't feel good about it. I call them and say, this is my situation, and they say, okay, you call us when you can get going again. So we're all oriented on safety. No load is worth a life.
Exactly. Sounds good. Thanks, Garry.
Thank you, Dave.
Garry Schmidt with Cliff Viessman Incorporated and South Dakota Trucking Association.
That's correct.
News Talk 1250 KBRF. Listen anytime, any place with the new Fergus Now app on your phone.